So we may have mentioned it's election day. The results are going to start rolling in soon, and no matter what we know, one side is going to be disappointed.
So today we thought we'd talk about your heart, the emotional heart and the actual organ with Dr. Payal Kohli, our friend and cardiologist. And I always think of that, when you fall in love or if someone dies or these things happen, you really feel it in your heart. But do you really feel it in your heart, so to speak?
You for sure feel it in your heart. And this is why the heart is the seat of the soul, in fact, because what happens when you have an emotion is your brain releases chemicals. And these can be negative chemicals like adrenaline or cortisol. They can be positive chemicals. If you're happy, you're in love, you have some kind of a joy. And this can affect your heart rate. This can affect your blood pressure. This can affect how your heart is beating. So when you feel your heart fluttering, that literally is your heart fluttering, because you may be having a skip because the electricity in the heart responds to these chemicals.
Well, judging by what we've heard the last few months, this is a day that's going to move people.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of like watching a sporting event where you're very attached. So you're either going to be thrilled and excited and potentially jumping up and down, or you're just going to start feeling devastated and it's going to extend for a few days.
Well, it's very interesting. They've actually looked at the 2020 election, the 2016 one as well. And the 5 days after an election, you're more likely to have a heart attack.
No.
Yes, your blood pressure is more likely to go up if you have a pre-existing history of high blood pressure, especially in Mexican Americans and Black Americans. And you're more likely to have cardiac arrhythmias, either fast or slow. Now, what's interesting about this is it doesn't really depend on which party you're supporting. So the general stress of the election.
Reaction.
Yes.
The stress itself.
Do you have to be invested in it? Like if you're someone, are you still considered like having had a heart attack 3 days after if you didn't care about the election?
Yes. Because it's all the other things around you. It's all the hoopla, the lack of sleep, the negative media attention, so even if you're not someone who's very invested in the election or the results or the party, and that's what was really interesting and surprising, is that regardless of which party you wanted to win and who actually won, you still ended up having more stress. Now, the people they studied were in swing states like North Carolina, so I think the pressure
high intensity.
Turned up a little bit because you're somewhat attached to the outcome. But it's really interesting because this time of year, I think because of the holidays, the elections, and all the other things, is one of the highest stress periods in our life.
Well, I think then you are thinking ahead to all of that. You're also, because it's been so polarizing, you're thinking ahead to the reactions of the people around you, or maybe something is said, and that can really stress you out too.
It really can, and it's interesting because there's a phenomena in medicine called broken heart syndrome. It's a condition that affects women more than men, postmenopausal women usually, and it's a paralysis of the heart triggered by an intense emotional response. And I remember this case in medical school. It was a woman who lost her husband of many years, and she literally collapsed at his funeral because her heart got paralyzed, the bottom section of the heart. It's called Takotsubo's cardiomyopathy. But any immense emotional stress, financial stress, political stress, or physical stress, even a car accident, can trigger this sudden discharge of hormones from your brain that then causes the receptors on the heart to freak out, and the heart literally gets paralyzed. Some people end up in the ICU on life support.
Can we prevent it?
You can prevent it by turning down the volume on that stress, because the people who get this are the ones that have pre-existing mental health. So, if you're somebody who has that target sign on you because you suffer from anxiety, depression, or PTSD, or just a high stress person in general, now is the time to take measures to turn down that stress, because even if you don't think you're stressed, you're internalizing it, and the chemical reactions inside your body could be driving disease.
I've heard people describe these last few days as waiting for a biopsy to come back. If you're really invested in this election, you're going to find out, you're going to get some good news or some bad news later tonight or tomorrow. So hopefully people can relax a little bit and at least be physically healthy through it. So Dr. Kohli, thanks as always. Thanks for your election night input. You can find much more with Dr. Kohli if you go to 9news.com/Dr. Kohli.